Hey there. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tinnitist TV. Today, I am talking to Ivan Doroschuk of Men Without Hats. That's right, Men Without Hats, the safety dance guys. It's been 40 years since the Montreal Synth-Pop outfit released that worldwide hit. But in all that time, it's never really vanished from the airwaves or the pop culture scene. You can't really say the same for Doroschuk, however. He continues to tour with various lineups of the band, but he only releases a new album every decade or so. The good news for fans, Doroschuk and Men Without Hats are finally back from hibernation. Last year they dropped the covers EP, Again Part 1, and now they've followed it up with Again Part 2, their first full album of original material since 2012. The better news for fans, their new stuff sounds exactly like their old stuff. Instead of chasing trends, jumping on bandwagons, or trying to fix what wasn't broken, Doroschuk wisely sticks to his musical guns here and delivers an album that sounds like it could have been written 30 years ago. In fact, some of it was. Again Part 2 features both new songs and unreleased tracks that Doroschuk pulled out of the archives. The day before the album dropped, Ivan zoomed in from his BC home to talk about his slow work habits, his favorite safety dance moments, how long we have to wait for that next album, and a lot more. Enjoy. Well, welcome back. First album in 10 years, Again Part 2, coming out this week. That once a decade release schedule has pretty much been your MO since the 90s. Why? Why do you only make an album once every 10 years?
I don't know, and I only made this one because the fans kind of pushed me to do it. So I'm just not the most prolific guy, I guess.
Really? Are you just a slow worker or what?
I'm a watershedder usually. I just sit around, minding my own business, and then all of a sudden I'll spend 2 weeks writing 25 songs, and then that's it for another 5 years. That's just the way I work. Yeah.
It just so you can just flip the switch like that and crank this stuff out if it comes to it?
I'm just a conduit. It happens when it happens. I'm not in control.
Wow. But I mean, as somebody who's been making music for decades, don't you just kind of, you'll be walking down the street and go, oh, a song's popped into my head. And for most artists, they rush somewhere to, get it down or make a voice note or something. Yeah. Do you just kind of let those fly by?
Yeah, I don't, like I say, I don't pay much attention to it. A couple of years will go by, I won't write a single thing. And then all of a sudden, I'll have a furious output of,
Wow, that is
a bunch of songs.
Unusual. Yeah. So you say the fans pushed you to make this.
Yeah,
how did that happen? Tell me about that.
Well, they're always asking. We got the best fans. We have the best fans in the world, and they're always after me for new music, anything, because my output is so, small compared to a lot of other bands. I have friends who make an album every year, and right. So my fans are continuously asking for new stuff, and I guess I just got. This album was a bit different, though. This album, we went about it a bit differently. It's the first album I've kind of made this way because I wasn't ready to make an album. We went back into the vault and, started looking through, rummaging through old demos and stuff like that. And we found a bunch of stuff. We found songs that from this Rhythm of Youth safety dance period and from the Pop Goes the World period, stuff that hadn't made it past the demo stage. Oh. And then there was a bunch of songs that I had written. We've been on the road for about for the last 10 years. I put the band back on the road. Right. And I've spent a lot of time in the back of the tour bus writing songs there, just because there's not much else to do on the road, when you get down to it. And so there was a lot of songs from there. And then there's songs that we wrote in the studio while we were putting the whole thing together. We got inspired and a couple of new things came out. So it's a different kind of collection. It's a retrospective. Yeah, it's a 40-year span of songwriting, of retrospective best of songs that never were released.
That's all the more impressive because, the whole album really coheres. It doesn't sound like, you can't listen to it and go old song, new song, old song, new song. It all feels like it was written and recorded at the same time. That's is that, I mean, I'm just amazed that your songwriting can be that consistent over such a period of time. Is it, I mean, it sounds like it's just easy for you to get right back into that mindset of writing, and writing in the same fashion as you were all these decades ago.
Yeah, well, I have a certain style of writing, I guess. I learned my songwriting from the Beatles, basically. They write the way I write songs the way the Beatles wrote songs, like verse, chorus, double verse, instrumental, double chorus, outro, that type of thing. These structures are kind of classical, and so there's that. There's the form that doesn't really change, and the topics. I mean, I'm singing about the same things I was singing about 30 years ago. The ecology and human rights still seem to be in the forefront of people's preoccupations. So, on that side, I'm, it's a continuation of what we were doing back then.
Well, yeah, I mean, End of the World could not be more timely as a song,
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of connections there for sure.
Yeah. I just love that this has such a classic sound. I mean, these songs could very easily have been on an album back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. From a production standpoint, is that a lot easier to do nowadays to create those sounds?
Yes and no. There's a lot, technology is so far ahead of what it was 40 years ago. Obviously, there's a lot more choices, but we still have some of the gear that we used back then. Like we have a Prophet 5 synthesizer that was used in the Safety Dance, on the Safety Dance tracks. And when you compare it to the instruments, the new instruments there's no comparison really. It's like comparing vinyl to CDs, right, to MP3s. There's every platform has its own uniqueness, I would say. And those the analog gear that we used back then, it was just, the sounds they're organic almost. They're electronic, but they're almost organic. And so we had a lot of that on the record.
All the patches and presets, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of things. Things are very easy. I mean, technology has made things a lot easier, but a lot more confusing too, because you have so many more choices. Back then, we weren't bogged down with all the choices. There was one kind of snare sound, there was one kind of drum sound, the other, just go with it. Now you go into the programs now, and you want a snare sound. You've got to sift through 80 years worth of snare collections of vintage snare drums of it's
so you just stay in your own little patch.
I stay in my own little world. We have our own little bubble that we created in the 80s, and we tend to
well, it's working. Do you take that old synthesizer out on the road with you?
No, we don't. No,
I was going to say, because that reminds me of the guy who has the ancient Les Paul guitar, who it stays in the studio.
Yeah, no, I can't believe we actually did that. Used to do that with all this gear back then. I mean, but I remember opening up for the Stranglers back in the 80s, opening up for the Stranglers, late 70s, I think it was even, and the keyboard player had somebody come and tune his synthesizers for them. They spent 45 minutes before the concert tuning the synths, making sure the synths were all warmed up and in tune. I mean, that's like archaic these days.
Yeah. So what's the oldest song on this album?
I think the songs that stretch back the furthest are Where the Wild Go Where the Wild Goes from the Pop Goes the World session.
Wow.
Let's see, I'm having a hard time remembering them all, but Heaven was a song that we played live. It was there's our 1985 tour that's on YouTube. There's a video of us from 1985, and that's the opening song. We'd never recorded it, so our fans have waited 37 years apparently for that song to be put out on a disc. So there's that. There's songs like, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask. And was there a lot of revision or tweaking or revising these songs once you took the demos out and listened to them again, or did they pretty much stand up as
They
they
pretty
were?
much, so we didn't change too much. I mean, a couple of them had lyrics that needed completing, but as far as structure, as far as, the type of sounds we were using, we stuck to what we had, and
Huh.
it worked out pretty well.
And is there plenty more where those came from? Do you have this vast archive of stuff?
We don't have a vast archive. Our archive is about as big as our output. It's like it's limited.
Okay, so this is kind of emptying the vault, as it were.
Yeah, but we did record more stuff than we put out. We do have enough for again part 3, if we wanted to call it that. There's we recorded more songs. We have a lot more.
But will you release it before 2032?
Oh, we most certainly will. We're in a different frame of mind now. We're into putting out more stuff. Like, things are a lot different now. The competition is gone that we used to have, like, back then.
Who do you consider your competition?
Well, I'm every other band that's out there trying to make it to number 1. It's like a hockey team. You're like on a hockey team. There's only that many spots. There's only that many people make it to the playoffs. Only that many people. There's only that many clubs in every city. There's only that many pages in a newspaper and journalists to print them and to write them. So you're kind of competing for a limited amount of space. The radio only plays 40 songs. The record stores only stock the top record. So you're
record stores. Where are you finding a record store these days?
Exactly.
So talking about sticking to that old sound, I mean, I'm guessing that there are people who you deal with who come to you and go, this is great, but think of all the new sounds, and a lot of artists get kind of maybe talked into or tricked into or misled into kind of chasing the trend or trying to update or trying to stay current, and you seem very confident and content to make this classic, timeless sound and stick with it. Is that just stubbornness or confidence, or?
Well, listening to you listen to modern music, and the thing that sticks out the most for me in this music is how 80s derivative it is. So you've got the 80s drum sounds, you've got 80s sampling. There's, besides the auto tune, I mean, it sounds like the 80s. I mean, someone like The Weeknd, I mean, I love his stuff, and I love it because it reminds me of the 80s. It reminds me of.
So the world's come around to you, is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. I don't have to conform to them. They've been conforming to me for the past while. So I'm just putting out the original, the original vibe.
Original flavor, exactly. I have to ask, do you even remember writing Safety Dance?
That one I do, because the story behind that is a true story. That I wrote it after having been kicked out of a club for pogo dancing to whatever punk song the DJ had slipped in. It was the dying days of disco, and after having been kicked out a couple of times, I definitely remember going home and saying, I gotta write something about this. That's for sure.
And when did you realize what you had in hand, or was this just another song to you, and somebody else said, maybe this should be a single?
Well, I'll be honest with you. When you're a early 20s songwriter, you think that everything that you write is worthy of the number 1 spot, and you just can't understand why people haven't got it yet. That's basically what's going on. But this was actually not our first choice as a single. It was when we released the first record. We didn't have an American deal. We were just being released. We were actually being released in Canada on import, because we had signed a deal with a small British label, Static Records, and Safety Dance was our second choice. We released a song called "I Got the Message" first, and that went. I don't think it went top 10, but it went top 40 in Canada. And we released Safety Dance, and I think that went all the way to number 12, and we were like blown away. We were completely stoked. We thought we'd hit the jackpot, and so that's.
Well, I hope you send a Christmas card every year to the person who decided to put that out as a single.
Yeah, it's it was a good choice, and it's I'm so fortunate now that I'm the only reason I'm able to be out there and still be doing this is because people, connected with the song, and, cross generationally too. There's,
I know it's just so many songs, they rise and they fall and they come and they go, but this one is just a perennial. It's been covered by so many other people. Do you have a favorite, or someone perhaps you wish would cover it?
well, I don't have a favorite to wish to cover it, but my favorite sort of pop, one of my favorite pop culture moments for the song is the Beavis and Butthead episode where they're watching the safety dance, and who does this guy think he is, Michael Jackson? And so
well, that's a lovely thing to be proud of. So 40th anniversary of the band coming up. I mean, you've got this album coming out, heading out on tour. Does it feel just as good 40 years from now, or 40 as it did 40 years ago, or better?
Yeah, it feels better actually, because of the competition thing that I was talking about before that is no longer there. The people we're going out, and first of all, we get to tour and share stages with, the cream of the 80s royalty. So it's blows me away every time I get to hang out with people that I listen to, and they were some of them are the reason I'm doing what I'm doing today. It's my first tour back in the US 10 years ago when we started up again was opening for the Human League and the B-52s, which were
nice.
Seriously, two bands that before I got into Men Without Hats, I was listening to, and these are the two bands that made me want to make electronic music and electronic dance music.
And are we going to get a Canadian tour?
We are going to get a Canadian tour. We're starting off in the UK in May,
right? And
continental Europe after that. We're going to the States for a Lost 80s tour again, and we're going to be in Canada in the fall. We have the East Coast is already starting to book up now, and it'll be the fall for Canada.